I am pleased that Dragoner has seen fit to weave our threads of fate together once more. May this coming episode be blessed by Ewigleibe, the god of life. We are now going to watch Season 3, Episode 29 of Ascendance of a Bookworm. So the first two episodes of the season, the first was a recap of the major characters, and then the second was more a catch-up on the challenges she faced towards the end of the second season. Namely to say the consequences of the Trombe subjugation. It also included an extra bit of conflict for Myne in that the Ink Guild was really trying to track her down for some reason. Likely not to be good reasons. That being said, we've reintroduced the helpers for our main character, and architecturally speaking, at this point we should be trying to set up challenges or difficulties that she's going to be facing. I mean, sure, she has to adjust to life in the temple without her family. It's a big emotional support network that she's currently having to do without. But more is interesting, of course. The more we have to see our main character fight and struggle, the more interesting the story will be. Now, the title of the episode is The Dedication Ceremony and Spring Arrives. I already know what's going to be happening likely in this entire season. I've read this series way too many times, but even without that foreknowledge, everything that has been presented so far should allow a observant watcher to piece together what might be happening in this coming episode. It's called the Dedication Ceremony, or at least it names the Dedication Ceremony. Something it's been talking about for quite a while. She has to stay in the temple over the winter because her mana is required. So it's some sort of event that requires a bunch of mana. We have not seen the High Bishop in a while. He was the main antagonist of the first season, often referred to in some circles as Evil Santa. As the highest authority in the temple, because Ferdinand wasn't happy with how things were going, for example, with the orphanage, but he couldn't speak up because the High Bishop was even higher than he was. So I would expect this religious ceremony to also include the highest voice in the temple, the High Bishop. Or rather, any observant watcher, anyone who's being observant, should be able to guess that the High Bishop is going to return. It makes sense, and we need more conflict than just being lonely in the temple. I mean, you can make just being lonely work as a story, but conflict is always good for showing the depth and complexity of the characters you're writing. And one thing this author has proven over the length of her entire series is that she's willing to give as many characters as she wants, complexity and depth. Now, if we're going to also include the start of, or rather, Dedication Ceremony and Spring Arrives, if we're including all of that and then we're already going into spring, winter has barely started. That's an entire 3 months just gone. I know we're only getting 10 episodes this season, or at least I think we're only getting 10, so we've already used 2. We have to get through quite a lot of material in this episode and then the next 7 weeks. Hopefully, not too much of the story will get truncated. Hopefully, it'll shine through and show the good qualities of the stuff that has been written, but time will tell. At least we're getting a 3rd season, so I'm happy about that. Without further ado, let's start episode 29. The Dedication Ceremony and Spring Arrives. Oh yeah, she definitely didn't like that. Return of the Ink Guild. Today's wine is an elderberry wine. Couldn't find a fruit, or I guess there were some berries that were mentioned, but it's really hard to find an exact analog for a specific type of berry. I'm willing to allow not having an extra berry to elude this wine to being as. Ah, probably my favorite one. The dedication ceremony and spring arrives. Nice winter. Oh, snow started. Who's High Beast? Ah, okay. So this is Damuel going from the noble section to the temple. Yeah. That green hair, is that Arno?
ダームエルだ。これからよろしく頼む。
公約騎士ということは上級貴族でいらっしゃいますの？
Yeah, calm yourself.
お知り合いになれて嬉しいですわ。
At least she didn't show outright disgust.
ああ、ダームエルだ。よろしく。
よろしくお願いします。じゃあ、俺は工房に行ってくるよ。
I guess as a lesser noble, he's not used to people looking up to him if he's at the bottom of the totem pole in the nobles. He wouldn't know how to take praise or not expect
い
praise.
つも他の貴族から下に見られてばかりだから、少々慌ててしまうんだ。見込み習いはどうするのだ？
もちろん、図書室に行きます。
Ah, Wilma. Oh, Wilma meeting a noble.
すぐにみんなの中に溶け込んでいった。
奉納式を行う儀式の場は貴族区域の一番奥にあります。
Ah, fancy hair decoration. She's in her ceremonial garb. It's fancy. Why are you smiling, Art?
ところで新館長、奉納式ってどんな儀式なんですか？
奉納式は神殿の行事の中で最も大事な儀式だ。秋
I
の
love the
陣を迎
extra
え
detail.
門近
Look at
く
the
に
little red
商店
sashes.
街にマ
Red is the color of the goddess
大切な
Gedlu,
鐘を振りたまえし神々
who governs the
に
hearth,
祈りと感謝を
or
捧
something
げ
like
るも
that.
のなり。
高く低々たる大空を司る最高神は闇と光の夫婦神。
広く高校たる大地を司る五柱の大神。風の女神ヒステリオで、土の女神ゲドゥルリーヒ。
命の神エーフィリーデ。息づくすべての命に恩恵を与えし神々に敬意を表し、特別なることを。
Ferdinand and Mine are doing it by themselves because they have so much mana. It's
やめなさい。
like yoking two sources of power that aren't meant to be yoked together. So
予想以上
she couldn't work with the High Bishop, for
驚き
example.
ましたね。
今日はこのくらいでいいだろう。
あれ全部私たちでですか？
そうだ。魔力量が違いすぎる。同じ祈りを捧げるときは魔力が流れやすくなるんだ。君の魔力放出につられてしまうと他の者の身が持たない。
ほう。
Oh, good, they explained it.
私と共に儀式を行えるのは君だけだ。
先は長いね。
I think that was in the art for the first episode. Second day.
ずいぶん熱心に祈っておるな。
神殿長。
It'd be High Bishop, not High Priest. Already translated the novels, just grab that.
マイン、俺にも魔力を込めよ。
A red ring. Was he born in winter?
新館長の命は聞けても、神殿長であるわしの命が聞けぬということか。
喜んで受けたまわります。
その言葉、忘れるでないぞ。
And if those chalices were made of gold, that should be a very heavy bag.
私成長しましたから。
What are they made of?
こうして奉納式は無事に終わり、冬の終わりにはロジーナが成人式を迎えてみんなでお祝いをした。
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. They made her paru cakes, I think. Paru being those weird fruits that are in a crystal tree that disappears in the noon light. Damuel in the commoners. Oh, forgot this was coming up. Types for the metal letterpress.
重要なのは活字の大きさと高さが揃ってること。
Those from the trailers.
私ヨハンにグーテンベルクの称号を捧げます。ヨハンは本作りに関わる人は全員グーテンベルクです。みんな仲間ですよ。
俺は嫌だ。
Everyone gets it no matter what.
なんぞ今度こそ処刑されるんだろう。
You should have been paying attention, Daniel. Wanted to be a little bit more shocking when she dropped, but oh well. Flowers in the snow.
雪も溶けてきましたし、私そろそろお家に帰りたいのですけれど。
実はボルフが死んだと知らせが入った。
貴族の仕業ですか。
おそらく
Fatality.
私
これを君の家族に渡しておいてくれ。
They're being summoned?
その貴族がワインを。
ああ、この領地からパレオか。今の段階ではわからん。だからこそ騎士団から
Because they killed the person who was interested in her for money.
移動に制限をつけ、そこで相談だが10歳になったらマインは貴族の養女をする。
That's not gonna go over well.
危険と判断されればマインは処分される。危険なものを排除するのは町を守る者として当然だ。兵士であるそなたならばわかるであろう。ギュンター。
It's a good way to make the point to
処
him.
分を回避するためには魔力をそのための養子縁組だ。
Laying the framework.
入学の10歳だ。
Yeah. Laying the basis so that she can go there.
君の守るためだ。
Remember the scene where Gunther was crying to himself when he learned Myne wasn't fully cured?
10歳なんてなりたくない。
Spring's coming along quite quickly.
記念式の準備が終わっておりませんのに。
Oh. Working along really fast.
間近で見ていると見込み習いの異質さがよくわかります。
神殿やマインに馴染んできたようだな。
あの事件のせいで降格処分になり、婚約も解消されました。
Ah,
飛行山に巻き込まれて
Maidenless.
されたと思うのはそなたは即座にロートを上げるべきだった。
ロート。
自分の手
Rot is the red signal light that Ferdinand cast out. Yes, it was a dereliction of duty.
身分が上の者に助力を超え、それさえできず任務に失敗し、我が身の不幸を嘆いていることがそなたの罪だ。バカ者。それで君の同行者は。
フラン、ロジーナ、フーゴ、エラの4人です。
4人だな。
新艦長、
Yeah.
せめて味をなんとかできませんか？
それと念のためにこれを身につけておきなさい。
Ah,
そして記念式
jewelry.
の朝
Obviously, it's only jewelry.
同行者が増えることになった。
And here we go.
お前プヒッと泣いてみろ。
はい。
Ah, that little clip from the trailer. So now we've introduced him, who, yeah, it is moving along pretty fast, but that's expected. We have a lot of material to cover. Oh. Next chapter, Spring Prayer. Okay.
天野さん、記念式でお土産買ってきますから楽しみにしててください。
それより食事どころだ。もうすぐ完成だっていうのに一度も出てこないじゃないか。
いろいろ忙しいんですよ。
いいから支払いの踏み倒しと盗難防止策を考えろ。
それなら一元さんお断りです。
一元さん。
紹介の一種なんですけど、紹介された人が問題を起こした場合、紹介した人に責任を取らせるんです。うふふん。
だいぶ商人らしくなってきたね。
やっと褒められたよ。
See it. Pause there. Letterpress. We got Johann making the letter types. Mine. Let's see. Moto and Naoko. Yeah, okay. Different artists, of course. Benno looking a bit too dandy there for my taste. Looks as pretty much on point for how it was being drawn previously. Okay, so episode 29. Yeah, it's moving fast, but that's expected. So we start off with a scene of Damuel commuting from the noble quarter down to the temple. He's flying on his high beast during winter. Hopefully it doesn't get too cold for him while he's up in the air, moving on a horse. I mean, a light point of contention, I guess, in the light novels. I'm not sure if they're going to go into it, and that they haven't makes me think they might not do all of the series, but the color of one's mana is dependent on the nature, or rather the attributes that they have. Damuel should have, I think, his mana should be yellow. That horse, centaur, flying Pegasus, whatever it is called, should have been yellow. I think it looked kind of greenish. I mean, maybe that's okay, but oh well. It's a minor point of contention. I don't think it truly matters to the story. Although if they were to go that far into the future, or animate that much of the series, it would be a slight continuity error. They start the dedication ceremony. It's super fancy. Everyone's dressed up nicely. In the scenes you can see they have also red sashes. So the colors are very important for the seasons and the gods they're associated with. This is the season of winter. Most people like to gather around fireplaces and hearths, and Kerlu, the goddess of the hearth, the goddess of earth, she presides over winter, compassion, and acceptance. Divine color being red, which is the life-giving warmth of the hearth. So that's why they all had those red sashes, and there is a bit more red color in the episode if you're looking here and there. In the chalices that they were filling up in this dedication ceremony, you can see the stones around them are imbued with this red color. Now, the High Bishop, after seeing them working, brings in extra chalices from somewhere. He doesn't know where. Ferdinand doesn't know where. He's not sure if if they're supposed to be filled or not, but being as Ferdinand is beneath the High Bishop, he can't really speak up or say, hey, we're not supposed to be doing this. Or he would not have enough time to go and figure out or find some higher authority to call to. Now, the mention of higher authority is important because in a later scene we have Damuel talking about, well, if only Shikikoza hadn't been assigned as a guard, his life wouldn't be so bad. He got demoted. Now he has to come work in the temple. And he's adjusting, but he thinks his life would have been a lot easier. Ferdinand, though, points out that his punishment isn't because of Shikikoza, it's because of what he did, his actions, or rather, his lack of action. He points out that if it had been an actual noble or someone of higher status, he would not have hesitated to do everything he could to protect them. He mentioned specifically casting a rot, which is the red beam that Ferdinand shoots up right when he sees the issue with Myne trapped in the tromba. He releases the enchantment on his, I think he still had bow and arrow at the time, releases the enchantment, calls over the rest of the knights, because he knew at that point he needs help. That's what Damuel should have done. He should have realized, I can't stop Shikikoza, I need help. He should have called for help. That's what Ferdinand was pointing out, and that was his sin, his dereliction of duty. He didn't do enough to protect his charge, which if you're being a knight, you should be protecting your charge. That is the most important thing. That was his sin, and that's why he is now assigned to guard her, to sort of atone for his lack of attention and for shaming the Knight's Order. Eventually, though, time passes, spring arrives. Myne wants to return home right away. At that point, I think the snow was just starting to thaw. We saw some flowers poking through. But Ferdinand says no. There's issues with her going home right away, because over the winter, while he was trying to look into this wolf character, he was very promptly killed. Now, if the man who was most interested in finding out the secret of Myne's ink, and the man who stood the most to gain and or lose as a result of that information, dies, then we can kind of rule out money being the deciding factor of the issues or the conflict Myne is going to be facing. Because it was twofold. Not only does she have a source of money and ideas, she is a massive source of mana. As shown in the dedication ceremony, Ferdinand mentions she's the only one that can do it with him because of how much mana she has. Or rather, he's the only one that can do it with her because of how much she has. That being said, since it's then likely to be a noble that's interested in Myne, now they have to figure out who. Their only lead, though, is dead. Is it a noble in the city, outside of the city? They're not sure, so they're trying to still protect Myne. That's why he's having her stay in the temple. He summons, or has her send a board to her parents to summon them to the temple to explain the situation. He talks to Gunther and Effa and explains the situation to them. Gunther, of course, wouldn't like this at all. He was crying and drinking by himself when he learned Myne wasn't fully cured of the devouring at the time. So, of course, he's not... And, of course, Myne's his daughter. He doesn't want to give her up at all. But Ferdinand points out that as a soldier, he knows that he needs to do whatever is necessary to protect those he is supposed to protect. And Myne is a possible danger. She has so much mana, if she loses control of her emotions, she could hurt people. Ferdinand right away responded in the last episode and put an empty face stone against her to absorb that extra mana, but commoners aren't going to have that. If she loses track of her emotions when she's with her family, they could likely be hurt in the same way that the High Bishop was. Now, I don't think she would direct her anger at someone, but it is a possibility. It's a threat that could exist. Likewise, she has so much that I guess some nobles could even be affected by it. The High Bishop does have at least some amount of mana, and he was still overcome and crushed. She is a possible threat. As such, if they cannot protect her and control her, Ferdinand says they have to get rid of her, or they have to eliminate the possible threat. As such, he wants Myne to be adopted and go to the Royal Academy. going to the Royal Academy is at the age of 10. She has to spend time with her new adoptive family. He's nominating, of course, Karstead. But it's really hard to let go of a child or someone you love, or it should be. Gunther isn't happy, but when it's explained in terms of protecting the city, he understands that his job is being a soldier to protect the city. So that's how Ferdinand convinces him. Effa, though, agrees to it almost immediately because she has been hearing from Tully. Well, Effa hasn't been able to visit during the winter, I'm guessing. She's pregnant, going through very slippery conditions, walking all the way to the temple. Kind of difficult to do. But she's been hearing from Tully how much she's being taken care of and helped in the temple, how much healthier she's getting. So she understands Ferdinand is doing what he can to help her. So Myne stays in the temple until the spring prayer comes around. They're packing everything up. They're getting ready to go. Ferdinand calls her over and mentions she's not going with just her attendants. A mysterious guest arrives, the one that has been in the trailers, the guy with the purple hair, and Karstead shows up as well. So I guess this, he was wearing blue robes, so I guess this priest is going to be going along with her on to this spring prayer, which I believe they mentioned that the chalices they were filling during the dedication ceremony are going to get used up during spring prayer. Myne brings up the fact that she's also got, since she's weak, she's probably going to end up collapsing. She's going to have to end up drinking more of Ferdinand's strongest potions. So yeah, mysterious guest points out right away, she's so small. Has she even been baptized yet? What's a child doing here? But hopefully the next episode will be a bit entertaining. Because it's a heavy topic. In 3 years, she's going to have to give up her family and go to the Royal Academy. Or rather, I guess, ultimately, in 10 years, her parents will lose their daughter. Either she'll be killed, or she'll be sent to the Royal Academy. Something has to happen. And it's sad to think about separating from the ones you love. We also got the letter types from Johann. He finished that assignment when Myne took him on as a patron. Or rather, Myne became a patron for Johann. He made the letter types, and she quickly passed out in excitement over having moved, I don't know, centuries forward in book development. Because transcribing books was centuries. Probably since, yeah. Books have existed a long time. They were hand transcribing those books. She hands out this title Gutenberg to first Johann and then says, actually, no, everyone involved with this gets this title. Benno doesn't want it. Let's try to calm her down. She doesn't remain calm, and she quickly passes out. Would have liked it to be a bit more comedic or a bit more dramatic. Damuel, of course, was immediately worried. At least they put his thoughts in there. He's like, great. Now I'm going to get executed. Next episode, what was it called? Spring Prayer, I think it was. That should prove to be exciting, or at least interesting. We learned so much about the universe already, and that's one season of religious ceremonies, really. Myne's going to show a lot of what the author created during her life here in the temple. So, really excited about next week. This week's chapter, better than last week's, I'll say that. A lot of stuff is moving forward, and I guess if I could sum it up, Detland gets what is deserved, and then it's the importance of names and robes. I guess that's the best way to describe the important things without spoiling anyone who hasn't read past pre-publication. The importance of names and robes. This has been episode 29 of Ascendance of a Bookworm. Thank you, and may Dragoner weave our threads of fate together again next week.